I would like to call the Plan Commission for Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 to order. The agenda was properly posted, and we are holding this meeting as a hybrid meeting, both virtually here at Village Hall and via Zoom. At this time, I would call for nominations of Chairperson Pro Tem.
I nominate Heidi.
I was already forewarned, so
Oh,
yeah, that might be a possibility.
you're in the front. So.
Right.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, then we'll move on to item 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Please find a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, then we'll move on to item 4, public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. We do have a public hearing on an item tonight. If there is an item any members of the public would like to speak on outside of the public hearing, please let me know, or raise your hand or wave on the Zoom. Okay, hearing none, then we can move right on to item 5, discuss and consider the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting of May 10th, 2023. Anyone have any comments, edits, or a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
A motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to item 6, the public hearing, the public's opportunity to provide input on a request from Todd Alish of Dippin' Dog Daycare for approval of a conditional use permit to conduct a commercial animal boarding land use on parcel number 0711-162-2166-1, located immediately east of 400 Progress Drive. We'll open the public hearing, and the first step we take is a review of the project. So, Todd, I believe you're here. Welcome. I think we heard about this a few months ago. It's a concept, so thanks for coming back. Make sure the switch is turned on there on the top. Great, thank you. So if you want to just do a brief review of what you're proposing, it's any changes since the last time we heard?
As the last time I was here, I'm proposing a doggy daycare on Progress Drive, just as you said, east of 400 Progress Drive. The reason I'm choosing Cottage Grove is because through my business plan and everything, I've realized that Cottage Grove is neglected of having something more centralized in town for people to make it a quick drop off. And also being next to a children's daycare, you'd be able to drop your dog off and kid in one fell swoop, so you wouldn't have to go to the daycare and then drive another 15, 20 minutes to pick up your dog as well. As the play on words for the business Dippin' Dog, I plan on having an indoor pool for dogs to be able to swim, rehabilitate, exercise as well. So when your dog is there, you can have the option of also having your dog swim in the pool as well, with an outdoor play area as well.
Great, thanks, Todd. Then we can move on to staff reports. So Aaron, we'll start with yours.
We'll have 2 action items. There's a conditional use permit that would allow the commercial animal boarding land use at this location, and then the site plan review for number 8. This is a lot that's been tough to fill. It's been vacant for a long time. It's fairly small for an industrial park, and then it's kind of made even smaller because of the hill on the northern half of the site. So I think this is a good fit. We would recommend approval of the conditional use permit and then approval with some conditions on the site plan. First one, we'd want the applicant to submit a final landscaping plan for staff review. Not sure if you're going to have any exterior lighting, like in the parking lot or anything.
I will, as well as outdoor in the play area.
We'll need to see the details of what kind of fixtures you're using. In the site plan, the drive aisle and parking spaces weren't dimensioned. We just need the dimensions of those to make sure they meet the ordinance. Want to see the details of the fence, the height, the material, whether there's a gate on it or not on the outside. And then just a reminder that if you're going to have any signage, the sign permit is a separate process. We have anyone from Strand available tonight, but I think their report was basically just also looking to have some coordination with staff on some final engineering.
Do we have Kyla or Josh on? Otherwise, if there's any questions, we can always relay those as well. Can't see everyone on the list, but okay. All right, then hearing staff reports, then we can move on to public comments on the project. First, I'll ask if there are any members in the room and move on to Zoom if there's anyone that would like to speak. So if you'd like to come up to the microphone, please, so then the members on Zoom could. Yes, please.
Just have a couple of questions.
Sure. If you could state your name and address for the record.
I own the daycare center.
Sure, sure.
So,
Could you have us either here or there for a microphone? We do have some members of the commission on Zoom, so I want to make sure they hear your comments. There's a little switch on the top. Yeah. Thank you.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, as I said, I'm the owner of the daycare and the property as well. I had a couple of questions as far as the daycare is concerned. Where are the dogs going to be when they're outside? Now, I'm assuming I'm to the left of this map?
Correct.
Okay.
the
So my
dogs-
parking lot is to the side of your building
Yep, and the outdoor area will be,
on that side?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I know you have to have a fence, but I mean, it's not anything that's reachable, I mean, with the dogs, because our kids do go out on the parking lot area at times. We fence it off and they ride their little bikes and so forth out there. Otherwise, they're on the playground, which is on the other side of the building.
yep,
But I guess we're concerned with dogs getting loose or kids getting fingers into fences, but it sounds like it's far enough away.
yeah, and it's gonna be a 6-foot wooden privacy fence.
Oh, so it's a wooden privacy
Yeah.
fence, okay. All right, and then, so that's their outside area. Okay, so that pretty much covers what
Yeah,
I
and
need
this,
to know.
this drawing's a little old, so I shrunk the building by 20 feet for cost measures because of inflation and everything just skyrocketing.
Okay.
So the building will be 20 feet depth-wise shorter, and then this will be outdoor play area as well. But like I said, that'll all be fenced in. and-
Okay, so there'll be play area around the back, but it's a wood fence? It's
Yes.
not chain link or anything?
Correct.
Okay. I suppose you have your own requirements or your own things for noise and smell and that sort of thing. I mean, noise, dogs are gonna bark. but
Yeah.
they're-
No,
I've never been really at a doggy daycare, so I don't know, that much about them.
if you can keep them busy, they'll be pretty quiet. Like one thing, because I go to the dog parks all the time, and bird dogs see birds.
Sure.
And
they
so when
want
I
to-
figured that out, I used to take my little drone, and I would fly that around the dog park. And I'd have one dog chasing that as a bird, and then I'd have my dog and 6 other dogs running giant circles, so I could keep them really quiet.
Sure.
But like, a lot of towns have noise ordinances up until a certain time, so dogs wouldn't be allowed out until probably 8 in the morning, because I don't know what the noise ordinance is in Cottage Grove.
Our ordinance is only related to construction activity, so
Okay, Okay, because dog kennel I used to work at, we weren't allowed to have dogs out till 8 a.m. just for noise pollution.
What's
But
the
if-
capacity? How many dogs are you allowed to have?
You're allowed up to 15 to 20 dogs a person that's working
Okay.
and supervising. I don't want to overdo it, so probably I'm trying to keep it at about 30 dogs a day to start,
Okay.
depending on demand, because
Okay.
I know Camp Canine's like a 3 to 4 month wait list to get into from talking to people, so I'd be able to help alleviate some of that pressure off them. And I know, talking to people, that they have one person to every 30, 35 dogs or something, so they can get a little overwhelmed.
Okay.
So I'm trying to do everything by the book, because I'm also dealing with the SBA, and they're gonna have tight requirements on me as well, so.
Sure, okay. It just, my concern is, oh, you know, with the kids, that we're gonna have a dog run loose or get away from its owner, but I mean, we have neighbors walking dogs all the time, so,
Mhm.
you know, that's not always controllable. So I guess my main concern was the fence, so, because the kids, you know, they're kind of all over there.
Oh, yeah, they're kids.
Okay, that's all, thanks.
Yep.
It's off. All right, we'll try that again. Are there any attendees on Zoom that would like to provide public comment on the conditional use? All right, hearing none, then I'll turn over to commission members for questions. Or do I close the public? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and then turn the conversation over to commission members for questions.
Guess most of mine can't be in the same ones, and
Go ahead, did you have something, Alex?
Easy one. So, you mentioned, I think boarding, right? But it's part of the conditional use. So is it just daycare? I mean, is there, if they wanted to do overnight boarding, I guess it's two questions. So it's just daycare.
Correct.
You're not holding things, or you're not holding our puppies around. And then if that changes, just process, would that come back to commission for another update to the permit type of thing, or what would, or he can just do it anytime, or what's the process around that?
Yeah. Land use in the ordinance doesn't really specify between the two.
Okay.
If you wanted to make that a condition, you could add that.
I wasn't thinking that, but okay. I just wasn't sure if there's any, so we don't have different.
We don't have two separate land uses for daycare versus boarding.
Okay. That was it. Thank you.
Other questions from the commission? I guess oh, go ahead.
I believe it was briefly touched on the last time you were in, but what are the procedures going to be with dealing with the doggy doo-doo and that kind of thing?
What was the question?
Dog waste.
Oh, well, it'll be disposed of properly. I think the last time I said I was gonna try and get some like 55-gallon drums that are airtight and sealed. And then trying to reach out to the guy that goes to all the county parks that picks up all the doo-doo there. See what he does, and if not, if he'd wanna take it himself.
I guess in not being a dog owner, but helping a neighbor that does have a couple dogs, you know, a lot of times we'll put that in a 5-gallon bucket in the doggy bags, and that does smell by the end of the week before garbage day. So how often would it be picked up? I guess is where I'm going with that.
It would depend on how full that barrel gets, and if need be to dispose of, then getting rid of it as soon as possible.
Have you seen airtight containers at other daycares that you?
I mean, kennels that I used to work at, they were just had garbage cans with garbage bags in, and then once it would get so full, they just throw it in the dumpster and wait for garbage day. Summer would be the worst, but winter, everything freezes.
Is that something that would fall under like a nuisance complaint if there was a neighbor to complain? Like, how would, we'd probably just try to coordinate and relay the information to you and see what we could, like that would be the course of action first, or?
Or are you thinking the dumpsters would be on the site?
They'd be interior of the fenced-in area, because when people are out there with the dogs, then it's ease of throwing it away. And like, I plan on having a gated area up front, so you can, when dogs are all inside, then you're able to open the gate and dispose of the feces as need.
So that's not on the side, so that'd be kind of in the middle of the site. What is to the east then? What use is to the east?
It's a business that was actually in here for expansion a year or two ago. It's like a boiler repair,
Okay.
BBS.
Okay.
I think they're mostly, the workers are mostly in the field, storage and maybe a little bit of office.
Okay. Any further questions on that topic? Otherwise, I had one on the fence, to make sure, since we had the concern with kids next door, is there anything we can add in maintenance on the fence to make sure that there aren't any holes that little fingers can go through or anything? I don't know. If that, I mean, and that's in your best interest, I'm sure, too. You
See,
don't
and
want a
I'd-
little dog to get out or something.
I'd have to deal with Hamburg on that one, because they'd probably want the fenced in first, because they're gonna do 6 inches of pea gravel. Because they said they've done it for some other areas, and it works really well for outdoor areas, because it doesn't freeze. Ease of picking feces out of it, and they said it just works really well.
Yeah.
What?
So-
Where's your fence gonna go? The whole perimeter of the lot, or
It'll be,
just your?
so 20 feet, yeah, just the outdoor area, so it'd be here, up, and then it's like 120-some feet over, then down, I think it'd be down about 60-some feet, and then back to the building. Because this front area is gonna be the office, where I give baths and bathroom, utility room, and break rooms.
Some of it's gonna be on my side, fence part.
Just 20 feet.
I mean, you're bringing it up, playground, if your play area is coming up around now, because your building's gonna be shorter.
Correct.
So I guess the question I had was just if there's a condition we can put in to make sure that the fence stays maintained, so there aren't like any pieces that are like broken off, or like, you know, if there's a piece of wood that breaks, it gets repaired timely. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want any little dogs to get out, and
No.
we don't want any little kids wandering nearby. So, I mean, I don't know if the condition matters, but you know, if that's something we can put in, I don't know.
Yeah, I plan.
Have a fence ordinance? Or is that, something happened with the fence ordinance, I think.
We don't have fence permits anymore, we still have a fence ordinance. Yeah, I believe that would be
That would fall under that.
covered under that.
Okay, all right.
Well,
then.
I'm just, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
concerned of putting a condition on one business versus another.
I mean, you could argue the nature of the business is different because it's keeping the dogs in, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
But if it falls under the ordinance anyway, then it doesn't have to be a condition.
So process, like, maybe I'm missing it. Is there drawings in here? Like usually we get a little bit more specific drawings, like the lot plan. I mean, we have that, but that's a representation. Usually we get some elevation drawings and there's like architectural stuff. There's a little bit more detail. Is there, like, am I missing it?
Yeah, I see some.
Because does it show the fence?
Yeah, it just shows the building.
It's just that? But usually there's
There's a rendering in there,
what?
rendering of the exterior.
That, yeah, but these are renderings, they're not drawings, right? So, like, the fence, which I get, we're trying to get a little detail-y with, but like, in the parking lot, I think there's a dumpster corral to the north on the daycare side, maybe, you know, and if the fence is up against that, I don't, you know, there's not a lot of interference or, you know, I see things with the neighbors, but I guess I don't see the detailed drawings, I see renderings. When it was first described earlier in this very meeting, I thought the fence was really just around that beige area, but now it's around the whole, covers that green all the way back over to the property line to the east, right, so.
For the time being. I just did that for the time being because it was able to save me $150,000. Because the costs, when I was first
Sure.
starting all this was like the first preliminary drawing of everything. And then cost just skyrocketed on me
Right, yeah.
in the last year and two. But prices have started to gradually come back down. In the future, yes, I want to plan on expanding that last 20 feet back out to where it was going to be originally. But for cost-saving measures right now, it is what it is for the SBA and every other loop I've had to jump through for.
So a lot of
to get
times, I
that.
mean, when we see the bank, there's an interior drawing, it shows like the break rooms where the bathrooms are and all those types of things. And so so not line item 7 is, we're saying, hey, we approved this permit, which is fine, moves things forward. The second one, line 8 is the site plan. What are we calling the site plan that we're approving here if we don't have those detailed drawings? Like the setbacks, how far the fence is off the property line and all that other stuff. I mean, what is it? I'm just used to seeing those things with the banks and that type of stuff. Go ahead, Aaron, sorry.
Yeah, so we were covering now with some of the conditions and the engineering conditions that we want staff to verify those final details when they're more dimensioned and figured out.
Is the fence part of the landscaping plan?
That was a separate condition that we wanted the
But it is a
fencing.
condition,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm asking if a rendering of the fence would be included in the landscaping plan. That's what you want to see, right?
Yeah.
The landscaping plan would show the location of it, and then we would want separate details of what. it
Yeah, so you're
shows.
saying, I mean, your line item 4 is provide details of the proposed fence. Well, here's the details, right? But how does that,
Yeah,
we're basically approving it without the details.
And I can get you those
Right.
details because I've priced it all out.
Fair enough, yeah,
Because I had to get all these details for the bank to
Yep.
be able to submit it to the SBA because
Yep.
I'm going to do it myself, so I had to get 2 competing bids against myself to see what my cost savings would be for that measure. So I can give you a whole list of what the price or materials, everything like that. Because it's roughly about 270 linear feet of fencing.
Yeah.
And so then the condition.
I guess
Oh, go ahead, Troy.
I guess to the point that Alex is making, though, is it possible to see that stuff before we make the approvals? I guess it raises a flag of in my mind anyways, as to exactly what is this going to look like. And you're admitting that the drawing that we have in front of us is not entirely accurate at this juncture. So, I mean, it sounds like you already have that information. It's just a matter of being able to show it to us so we can approve it.
And you guys are correct. If you wanted to bring this back next month to do the site plan analysis, I mean, basically, you could approach it 2 ways with the fence issue specifically. You could make it a condition such as the applicant needs to maintain a 6-foot solid wooden fence. and that would just be a condition of the approval. Or you could also put that in as the site plan approval. It sort of fits under either. So you could do, potentially do the CUP, vote on the CUP tonight, and if it's approved, bring the site plan back next month, or you could, potentially table the whole thing if you wanted to just have the whole proposal back next month.
What's your timeline to break ground?
I've got a contract conditioned of bank approval with Hamburg. And that's why Hamburg owns all that land, and they're used to working with Cottage Grove. So I figured they'll be able to help me as well, because they know what you guys like and don't like. So I'd be able to shoot ideas off them and be like, no, don't even try that, because the village is going to shoot you down. So then I could know exactly what I need to do. I've sent Mike Heichel all the information that I've been asking for this meeting. Travis from Cleary, that's who the builders would be for the building. I think he's on here right now. If he has any input, Travis, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, guys. So I submitted a rendering of the building itself, and I believe that Aaron has that rendering. If you could show that, Aaron. We kind of detail what we have as far as the exterior of the building. Obviously, that does not show the fence. I would suggest might add also, I sit on a planning commission myself, so one thing you could potentially do is just dictate that the fence it has to be a privacy fence, XYZ tall. If that's what you want to do, if you wanted to see the fence, you can always request us to bring it back. That's either or, but this is what the building is going to look like, essentially speaking. Essentially everything from where that building steps to the bigger is going to be hidden by fence. The front section is the only part you're really going to see. There's brick on it. The building we're not cheaping out on the product of this to make it look, not gonna look like a post frame structure. It's gonna look pretty nice like an office. If you've seen a building in Madison called Boneyard, this is going to look very similar to that. I built that structure for them. There's another structure downtown Madison that's very similar to this. It's just much bigger, but as far as the building design is concerned, this depiction is pretty, it shows what it's going to be, except you're not really going to see anything from the connection of those two buildings back on the bigger part, because it's all going to be hidden by fence. The landscaping, we haven't really we haven't dove into the landscaping yet, because we understand that there is a landscape requirement, and it has to be done by a licensed landscape architect. So when we say that, is obviously hiring a landscape architect costs money, and we're trying to eliminate any expenses until we know we can do this, right? We can supply you takeoffs for fence. We can supply you takeoffs or cut sheets for electrical. Lights are going to be used. That's not a problem at all. So, and I can help out with any of that kind of stuff too. So just let me know what you guys would like me to, or any questions you have for me. But again, if the fence is what's hanging it up, that's perfectly okay to do anything you wish. You could place tons of conditions on it with specifically what fence it needs to be, or you could ask us to bring sample of the fencing back in. You could make that a condition, or you could just make us wait another month. But as Todd has said, that there's a condition on the purchase of the property that that some of this stuff starts getting met and dealt with so that he can buy the property. And we're working with the SBA on that. We're trying to, I wouldn't say accelerate this by any means, but We want to get those terms met so he can buy the property. As
Yeah.
far as the building is concerned, we're really not even talking about building yet till this fall at the earliest. So we have a little bit of time on that is what I would tell you. If there's any other questions, you guys are more than happy, or I'm more than happy to answer.
So, my summary of where it's a process doc. I love it. I have, 8 says, approval of a site plan. So what specifically, like to staff, what specifically is the document site plan we're approving? So we have the renderings, which is awesome, all the other stuff, the language around the permits and the conditional use, all that stuff, like we got that all figured out. I don't know what I'm approving specifically for number 8. So that's where I think potentially that's where, and the fence sort of brings that, highlights that. The fence isn't the problem, I think, for me. It's just, I don't know exactly setbacks, where this is gonna be, what is the site plan I'm approving in this packet?
And it's basically the conceptual one we had on with the conditions that he has to update it with all the additional details for us. Or alternately, you can have them do that and bring it back and approve it next month.
So if we left it with the conditions for staff to verify, it would be following the ordinances listed in your conditions, like you would verify that that's, or any other added conditions that we put on, like regarding the fence? Or-
Yeah, I mean, that sort of sets a precedence that goes back to staff review, though, right? And the whole purpose of this commission is to approve the site plan, right?
And that would be Mike, who's the
Yeah.
engineer for them. And I've reached out to him, but they're busy right now, so it's really hard to get a hold of them.
Fair enough.
I've never done this before. If I have, this would be a lot easier.
And I'm just curious why we're talking about agenda item 8 when we're on
Sure.
agenda item 7. They are 2 separate
Sure.
agenda items. And we can approve 7, which is the conditional use.
Oh,
So,
Fred, would you be ready to make a motion on item 7 then?
I'm ready.
All right. Make sure your mic's on, then we can,
I move approval of a conditional use permit to conduct a commercial animal boarding land use on parcel number 0711-162-2166-1, located immediately east of 400 Progress Drive.
Second.
the staff conditions and the reports pertain to the conditional use permit, to the site plan, or we should add
Sure.
conditions for both?
We had no conditions on the conditional use permit that was on the site
All
plan.
right, thank you. Any other comments? We have a motion and second on the floor. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. So then, item 8 for the site plan, discuss and consider request for approval of site plan to construct approximately 4,800 square foot doggy daycare building on parcel 0711-162-2166-1, located immediately east of 400 Progress Drive. Guess then I'll open to commission further discussion on item 8.
You probably should have a more legit up-to-date site plan. That's what you're getting at, Alex.
And I'll reach out to Mike. I'll email him right after this to tell him what.
Have some sort of elevation view of the fence.
Sorry, guys, I've had my hand up a little bit, I'm kind
Oh,
of weighing it.
oh, Travis, sorry, since we're screen sharing, I didn't
No,
see your
you're-
hand up.
You're okay, then. You're okay. So what you could do on the second part of this, I agree, I'm not sure who mentioned this about approving the conditional use and approving the site plan separately. I think that gets us where we need to be, where Todd can start moving forward on the purchase of the property. We can get together, we can get you a better detailed site plan. You can just table this item till the next meeting. We'll get you a better site plan. We'll get you some cut sheets on the fencing, some images of the fencing. We can resubmit that to Aaron. We can come back next month and finalize the site plan. But I think this gets us to where we need to be as far as what so he can proceed moving forward. as follows, and I'm cool with that. I can attend the meeting in person also. And I can get you cut sheets and whatever else on the site plan. We can have a little bit better drawing for the other plan.
Sure. Thanks, Travis. Don, did you have something else you want to add? I don't know if your mic's on. You might not have been able to talk. Thanks.
No, it just, Travis already answered it. They're gonna come back with an appropriate site plan. Yep, updated.
Do we need a formal motion to
Table it?
table it?
Yeah, I can make a motion to table item number 8, to give the opportunity of the business to bring additional information to Plan Commission.
If I could just suggest putting a table it till the next plan commission meeting, just like.
So amended, table to the next meeting.
You're okay with that, Fred?
Yep.
I'm good with that. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, we have a motion and second to table until July. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. We'll see you next month. All right, then we'll move on to item 9, discuss and consider a request from One Community Bank for a variation from 325-106, parentheses C, parentheses 2, parentheses A, to allow more than one ground-mounted sign at the new bank building under construction at 1565 Landmark Drive. Not sure if we have, oh, it does look like we have some members from One Community Bank here. Give a little overview.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, Heidi, and all the Plan Commission members. I'm Jeff Urslis. I've seen you before a few times, so thanks for making time for us. I'm also joined this evening by my colleague Heather Tyler, who is our Vice President of Marketing and is helping us organize our signage efforts. So we're here to answer any questions that you all might have. We were in front of the Architectural Review Committee last Wednesday. I would just start by saying, we're pleased with the ARC's support of our plan here, and, a lot of our thinking behind this is, our interest in use additional monument sign to, support the community. And Heather, I believe that's a particular passion of yours. Would you care to shed any additional light on how we would be happy to use that monument sign?
Absolutely. Thank you for your time this morning. One Community Bank is very excited to open our doors in the Cottage Grove community in early '24, not only to serve the Cottage Grove community with their banking needs, but also to play an active role in the community. After all, community is their middle name. But in addition to that, this second sign would allow us the opportunity to support the community in a different way by providing an opportunity to put any upcoming community events or any new upcoming things coming to the community right on that digital message center. So we think it's a great opportunity in addition to the Cottage Grove community.
Thank you
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you for the overview. Then I'd ask Aaron if he had any extra info.
Yeah, like Jeff said, the ARC looked at it last week and didn't have any issues with it. I think the request makes sense, kind of given the odd shape of the lot and where the driveway is compared to the building. And the message board, I think that's a great location for it. We're always putting our portable one in roughly the same spot across the street, and I know it's bombarded with requests that we often can't accommodate with that signage, so this is maybe a place where some of those messages can be. Condition we had is just, again, kind of a reminder, this is not actually issuing the sign permit, this is saying they can apply for one, for that extra sign.
Thanks, Aaron. Questions from the commission?
I'm fine with it. I think there was a trend quite a long time ago in that all the communities were kind of adopting almost overly restrictive sign ordinances, kind of, sort of. So loosening this up a little bit, I don't see as an issue. So.
Other questions, comments? Otherwise, this is a discuss and consider item.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from One Community Bank for a variance from 325-106 C2A to allow more than one ground-mounted sign at the new bank building under construction at 1565 Landmark Drive.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And any other comments on item, questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Motion carries. Great. Thanks so much for sticking around tonight, and construction looks great so far.
Thank you, Heidi. Yeah, we're pleased to be vertical. Roof's going to be going on soon, so we appreciate all your support very much. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move on to item 10, discuss analysis of non-residential parking requirements among comparable communities. It's coming back from discussion from last month. Aaron?
Yeah, so there's a few documents and charts and things in the packet. The one document is kind of listing off a lot of the different requirements from the different ordinances and all the comparable communities. I think that list is kind of hard to make anything out of when you're just reading through it. So we put that into a matrix, which is still a little bit hard to make anything out of. So then we had the second matrix where we kind of imagined an example project and figured out how many spaces would be required in each municipality based on their ordinances. And that's kind of been color coded, so anything in white, that's kind of the median amount of spaces for that category. Anything in green would be where they would require less than the median. Red would be where they require more, and obviously the darker the color, the further from the median. So generally speaking, you can see Madison far and away tends to require the least amount of spaces. Some of the others on the end, Verona, DeForest, Wanakee, tend to require more in a lot of categories. We're more or less towards the median in a lot of categories. The ones that kind of jump out as requiring more were the daycare centers, library/museum. We don't have those yet, but they're in the ordinance. And the middle school is also a little bit higher level, but the more common things like office or professional services, retail, restaurants, we were all kind of right around that median amount. A few categories we want to revisit, but wholesale changes, we might be kind of going.
Questions, comments, ideas?
Have we had complaints or?
So much for commercial, it tended to be more for the multifamily where they thought it was, our requirements were a little above and beyond. We'll say the ones that are tied to employees can be a little tricky because you have instances like Johnson Health Tech where they continue to keep adding employees after the fact. And it's a little hard to legislate that afterwards. So I think tying things to square footage, it's a little bit more manageable in some cases. It's less about the number and more about kind of maintaining it over time.
Didn't Johnson, they ended up adding space at one time.
Added some over time.
Yeah. And even Summit showed where they would build an additional parking lot if need be, if they fill the one vacant floor, and, yeah.
Those are the two largest employers that have the most people working at them. Well, with the exception of Amazon's not built yet, but that of course will be different.
Hydrate would probably be the other.
Sure. So Aaron, you're looking for any direction on any we might want to change, or I guess what do we,
I'm mostly just looking for feedback. We looked at the residential last time, and there was the request. The residential stuff we looked at last time, I think, pertains more to the housing issues, which is where we kind of started with all of this. I don't know that any of these jump out at me as pressing to make a change, but adjusting some of the residential ones, this would be the time to.
You know, Aaron, if I can ask, are there any standards out there of ratio of number of employees to number of parking spaces that could be incorporated to a developer's agreement or whatever as they grow employee-wise? They need to make sure they have enough parking spaces or can expand the number of parking spaces. You know, Johnson Health mentioned here, you know, obviously it's great that they've seen employee growth, but it doesn't seem like they anticipated that from a parking standpoint, and that landmark gets pretty filled up. And get the name of the street, Gaston, is it Gaston runs east and west there? It gets filled up too, so.
Yeah, the tough thing is when they're expanding within the building, there's not a subsequent site plan review where you can go back and make that requirement. You know, if they're expanding the building and then adding people, you can, you know, it's easier to say, yeah, you have to add the parking now as well. Yeah, Rick, I don't know if you have any.
Are they when they're expanding internally, are they pulling permits for construction when they're addressing new things interior wise that could be addressed at that point?
Building permits, yeah.
Yeah,
Rick, I don't know if you
as
have.
Aaron mentioned, when we've got like an actual site plan amendment, it's easier to catch those things, right? I mean, but if they've got their existing building and the existing sort of footprint and layout is able to handle more employees, it's hard to capture that and even really enforce it without like some sort of audit, I guess, of their parking usage and employee numbers. Like Aaron said, once we get, you know, once they need a permit for something, whether it's changing the site plan or something that sort of triggers another review, then we're able to catch it. So it's just one of these things where, without actually finding a way to like audit the employee numbers and their actual parking usage, it's sort of hard to regulate after the fact.
You have thoughts? I think Troy mentioned doing that through the developer agreement. I mean, if it's a project where you might reasonably anticipate that, it could be addressed there. I think with Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, we could put something in a development agreement potentially, like if they exceed, you know, a certain amount of employees, then they need to do additional parking if we think it's going to be an issue. So, you know, if they go above, let's say 50 employees, then they need to construct additional parking or something along those lines. So if we do have a development agreement, that's something we could potentially put in there. Or I guess potentially we could do it with a zoning approval type as well. So like a site plan approval, just saying, you know, this is based on this many employees. If you go above this many employees, you'll need an amendment.
Yeah, but it's only an issue if it's an issue, right? So like Johnson Health Tech was our example. Prior to all the additional construction, they're in the middle of nowhere. They're not bothering anybody. It's not an issue, right? And so I think it's some of the mechanics of how it works, right? Put up a fence, don't put up a fence. The neighbor has a dispute. They had to bring it through a process to say, hey, this doesn't feel right. You know, we could always, I'm not saying we're doing anything, right? But you just make it no parking on the street. And then it really becomes something that they need to address. So, you know, or they've secured off-site and they're busing people in, or whatever, you know, whatever. So I think I'm not seeing, you know, Aaron, I think the analysis is really thorough there. I think the colors really help pop things out. I love that you wrote, you know, more than 50% more, you know, the more of mores, or the less is of more of less, more than less than, whatever, yeah. So, but for Cottage Grove, I mean, it seems like we're in that mean, or anything that is red or way off is stuff we don't have. Right? We don't really have a museum, but we can address that as a unique individual. Even some of the daycares, whereas compared to Madison, they probably have thousands. I don't know, right? We have a couple, handful, and we deal with it on a case-by-case basis, based on that particular business protocol, that they anticipate. So I think you'll find it difficult to regulate, and then if you did, how do you apply it consistently? So, but I don't know. The view's good. It helps paint a picture of we're actually somewhat okay is what is, I guess, the summary that I see from it, unless that's not the summary you're telling us, Aaron. We're reading, okay. Yeah.
The other example I thought of, it's not a problem until it's a problem, is rugby. I'm not sure if would that fall under any of the categories that we have, or I don't know if we'd even ever have another private sports complex proposed, but yeah.
Situation. That's something that should have been addressed in the original agreement between the village and the rugby club, and it wasn't. It sounds like it's being worked out.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's a great example, Heidi, because was it 2 weeks ago, this coming Saturday, even though it says all along Violet's Road on the west side, no parking, it was parked for a half a mile, literally, and the road is, being taken up, that it'd be a two-car net at one point. Thank God they'd slow down and they'd give each other room, but yeah, I'm not sure if there's any enforcement went on that day where it says, no parking anytime, but there's a wide section of Violet that was definitely taken up by cars, partially on the road because of a larger event. Thank goodness we have these things. We have issues with Johnson Tech. They've added people, and it's good for the village, but something to think about in the future. Steel is doubling the size of their building, and they're not adding any employees, so that seems like that's a moot issue, at least today, but down the road they may add people. So
What's kind of unique about Johnson Health Tech, I think they converted some of the industrial area into more office space and kind of shifted more of their warehousing off-site.
So it sounds like I'm hearing we're okay with how these look in comparison, or I don't know. Do you have enough direction on this one?
Yeah, it sounds like I'm hearing just leave the commercial alone for now, and I think there were a couple of the residential categories we were maybe going to tweak a little bit.
Well, we can address the red ones when they come before us, right?
Right,
Because,
right.
the only thing I thought was funny is a library or museum has more parking than the middle school. So,
I'm not entirely sure why library and museums get lumped together in all these ordinances
well,
either.
I
They're
just-
two very
I mean,
different
I just
uses.
found
But,
that
yeah.
The other thing that this kind of triggered me to think about is any electric vehicle chargers that we might want to consider. Maybe that falls in more of a TID thing, incentive to have people put them in, or if we put them in as requirements. I'm not sure how that works with what we can or can't require, because that might be something the state legislature says we can't do. But, and bicycle parking is the other one that I was thinking of. But Rick?
Yeah, I'd have to double check on the, like the EV example. If it's the tax increment financing, definitely, we can make that part of the negotiation. As far as a standard requirement in all like developments, I don't know the answer off the top of my head if we could do that.
Okay.
I think the EV thing, you're really going to need to check with Lion Energy too, because what we're finding, a lot of projects I've been looking at, there's no power. It just doesn't work. So I think some of the smaller stuff, little plugins you can do, like household style things, but like these larger giant banks, and then we still have that substation that never came back. So,
Yeah, well, in the Target one I use by my brother-in-law's house, they advertise it's a 150 kilowatts an hour, but it's about 70, so
Yeah.
not getting quite the power that, they advertise on their chargers. So. I'm not sure if that's like a grid issue or what. But.
It could be throttle. I mean, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
know. And you don't want to burden. You got to be careful as well, as Fred says. You sort of take these case by case because you don't want to burden the business with undue things that are good but not really business related, unfortunately, right? So.
Well, and some will be market driven too, as more people demand, if they want to charge when they're at a restaurant, then, they'll go to restaurants that have chargers. I don't know.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's their business model. Yeah, it's up to them, yeah.
But yeah, the bicycle parking is the other one that I had. If we want to incentivize people to use our bike paths to get to businesses, then, having a place to park their bike when they get there is good.
Yeah, and when we've suggested that to people in the past, it's usually been addressed and they've added it, so, especially along the trails.
Yeah, that's a much smaller cost than an EV truck.
And I guess I personally would struggle with requiring any business to put EV charging stations on their dime. We don't require them now to have gas pumps for people when they come and visit their facilities, and I have a hard time distinguishing the difference.
That's a good,
Sure, yeah.
That's a good.
really good point.
Any other comments on the parking requirements, or might have something planned next on the list of things to look at?
Or other housing-related tasks for us to keep looking at.
Great.
Good
So,
job.
thanks, Aaron. So that'll be a future agenda item, other things on the list?
Get ready,
Yep.
Fred.
Shady Grove, I think, is zeroing in on what they want to do along the frontage as far as some duplex units. So that may be coming back for a rezoning. Parks Committee will be looking at the final version of the park plan next week. So assuming they approve that, we'll have a public hearing probably in August based on the notice requirements, but we'll look at that here and then send it on to the board. And we'll have Todd back with more details on his building.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any other items for future agenda items? Otherwise, all we have left, item 12.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second, non-debatable. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks for putting up with me. John should be back next month, I hope.